Welcome to another episode of You Already Know. Today I'm going to talk about the healing journey and wholeness and unconditional love. And let's start by saying or talking a little bit about what are we healing? Well, honey, it's probably different for everybody to some extent. What I really like about A Course in Miracles, which is this book right here, good morning, is that it asserts that the only thing we need to heal is misperception, the idea that we're separate from life. I found that to be very true, anchoring that for me. And true, when I'm talking about true in these broadcasts, I'm saying basically to the point that I can currently see, I find that truth is more of a ladder than it is kind of a lookout point, like a fixed lookout point, and that you can't prove anything true. You can only say what's false, and that kind of reveals or shows what is, what remains then is true. And that's until otherwise. And basically true, to me anyhow, what's true can't be said. And so it's looking at something and being able to say like I'm seeing this, I'm feeling this, I'm conceptualizing this. At the same time, I'm recognizing I'm only doing it from this perspective. And because it's this, it can't be the words. Words are abstractions. Words are neuro-linguistic programming says words are the territory, or words are the map. Life is the territory. You can use the map on the territory, but it's not the same thing. So when I'm talking about what's true, basically what I'm looking for is what's helpful, period. The theory of it is somewhat interesting to me, but I'm more interested in what can be applied. Good morning. So if you're joining, what we're talking about today is healing, wholeness, and what was the other thing? Unconditional love. So I'm going to write those out so I don't forget. Healing, wholeness, unconditional love. And then I started to talk about what are we healing? Well, for everybody it's a little bit different. I segued then into saying A Course in Miracles basically says that we only have the one thing to heal, which is the misperception that we're separate from life. That to me is sort of this idea of oneness, where I'm sitting in this room with all of these things that aren't Shaylee, these books, this very cool gel stick. I totally recommend these. These are called King Art Mixed Media Gel Stick. These are so fun. I, Shaylee, am very, obviously not this or those. And yet, I am not separate from them. And from that, I mean that we're participating in this experience where there's nothing just like you can differentiate cells in the body from the body or a hand from the foot. It's all the same thing, and it feeds into each other in interesting ways. When we're talking about you, me, this, the gel stick all being one, to me it's a little bit more nuanced and complex than that, in that I recognize that through my focusing, through my emotional set point, through these other things, I'm also influencing what's around me. And it's influencing me. We're inseparable. So misperception of separation basically is the illusion that you're not connected to everything. Why does that matter? Well, it changes your orientation to what happens. So as you're walking down your little life path and something happens, you can embrace it as for you, as part of sort of what life is doing to help you grow, help life grow. We're all life force to me. And so life force is concentrated at this point, and it's concentrated at your point. And all of life, though, is still this one singular body. So, I'm the hand, you're a hand, but it's still this one body of life. And I think that it's really humbling and helpful, at least it was for me, to recognize, sure, life cares a lot about the hand, life cares a lot about the foot, but life cares most, it's more than me. It's not about me. And Doctor Strange, I love Marvel movies. In Doctor Strange, one of the characters is kind of this guru who actually is a little on the twisted side, which is why I love Marvel, because these people aren't just they're multi-dimensional characters, quite literally. And she's like, you haven't learned the most important lesson. It's not about you. Yeah, it's not about. Life is happening through Shaylee. Shaylee is a vehicle where this is happening, and yet I'm important from the standpoint of, just like I said in the Grace video a few weeks ago, the health of the cell, the health of the hand, the health of the foot is part of the health of the body. So it's, it doesn't serve the body if Shaylee is in a restricted or not good place. So embracing, recognizing oneness is basically accepting or allowing, or at least entertaining the possibility that what you're interacting with in some ways is information for you to do, become more, allow, be, whatever, more life. And sometimes that process looks like trading the source of one of your resources, like love or confidence or identity, to something bigger or broader. That process is not always that comfortable. However, when you get to the other side, if you let yourself get to the other side, you find that it is in fact freer. And in freedom, you're actually allowed more presence because you're not worried about the thing. You're letting life be life. So when I was saying the misperception of separation, when you heal that, you have a relationship to life that's like, come here. Sure, whatever that uncomfortable, shitty thing is, like, come on. What do you, what is your yield? What do you bring me? And you can use, or at least I've seen others, like, and again, imagine there's a table between us. I'm giving you ideas, perspectives. I'm putting them on the table between us. I'm not saying I'm absolutely right. All I'm saying is, like, there's some stuff for you to play with. Like, you do you, discover what's correct for you. So I'm going to put on the table, per my experience, it's not separate from, Jung's shadow work, or, like, there are other people who are saying what I'm saying, but again, like, you do you. When you allow that what's present is for you and you embrace it, then oh man, I got so excited I forgot where I started. So basically I was saying the misperception of separation is being non-resistant to life. I think that non-resistance and surrender and a lot of those concepts I talked to are sometimes hard to conceptualize, because resistance is like, well, why wouldn't I resist something that's bad? Well, you take the action against it. Like, the best example I can think of is, like, here's these awesome gel sticks. I spilled the gel sticks on the floor. Several of them. You can't see them. Resistance is sort of saying, like, why are these here? These can't be here. This is wrong. Non-resistance is picking them up and putting them away. You see, it's the simplification of the mental activity. And I think as consciousness expands, as life pushes out through all of us, that can, there are layers of that. So that means, like, if I have all this stuff on the floor and my first initial reaction is, this is awful, this is so wrong. There's a level above that can be like, it's okay that you're freaking out, like being non-resistant to the emotional experience and letting that subside. But really what it comes down to is, like, where do you want the markers? Like, that's really what kind of like ego work and all the healing allows you to do, where you become or go through your personality, come to the other side, and are able to see, like, well, what is it, and to where, or to what. So if you're just joining today, first, thank you. Second, today I'm talking about healing, wholeness, and unconditional love. And so I started by talking about how healing is actually, like, to me anyhow, simplifies as this idea of healing, that we can be separate from life. And whenever you heal that idea, you work with what is differently, and you're not resistant against it. You're sort of saying, like, wow, this hurts, this loss sucks, this challenge sucks, but, how is this allowing more life? And then you start to interact with it and embrace it in a way that, leads you closer to God, which to me is the present moment, which to me is, again, being able to be somewhere without all your fucking ideas, as cute as they are. So then underneath that idea, there's these other things we heal. So it kind of like spreads out, and it's like different applications of, like, non-acceptance. So healing like why you can't allow how you feel and to act from that place. Healing why your happiness is contingent on this objective or this relationship, or why you're allowing. That's kind of like the process. And for me, I started like 7 years ago, and that's how long it's taken to come to this what I feel is some level of wholeness. So it seems like, oh, you're always working on yourself. One can always be working on oneself. Yeah, absolutely. And I think of it like this. So here's a house. The healing work that you maybe feel called to do is more like repairing where there's big gaps in the roof, or where the floor is turned out. Like, you're doing work that brings the house to a place of wholeness, where after that point you're still doing work, but it's mostly maintenance, improvement, and responding to real-time kind of like adjustments. So the path is basically like to this place where the house in itself is like safe. And to me, safe basically means that you're willing to take in information about what you're doing wrong. Thank you, good morning. What you're doing wrong. Let's say like what is hurtful to yourself or to others, and to iterate. So, going back to this idea of the markers being on the floor and just doing what needs to be done. Healing to me brings you to a place where you can deal with information where it's not about you, bro. Like hear it, see it, allow it, and like act. And that could be, again, like at an interior level. Perhaps what, is occurring is this like, woe is me, like where the anger, anger is one of my new favorite things. And I guess it's been new and favorite for a year or so now. But the idea is basically like that's information. Before your house is whole, you can have like false signals. So I think of it too, like healing, like if we look at it very physically, if I have a bruise here and a cut and someone touches my bruise and my cut, I'm going to have a reaction that's different if they touch the same place that's healed. So healing work is basically recognizing that your reaction is magnified because of the exposure here, like the unhealedness. So, when it comes to like love and relationships, if somebody touches you somewhere, just naturally, generally they just bump into you and you have an idea that's unhealed. And what are you healing in these instances? Generally that you're worthy and you're safe. And of course, like that idea is a spectrum. Like, I think of it kind of like the Olympics. I'm sorry, like you can be real cute, but unless you can play at an Olympic level, you're not going to play in the Olympics. Does this mean you're a bad or unworthy person? No, it just means that you're not going to play at the fucking Olympics. Similarly, like, this idea of self-worth, it's like, you're worthy of being alive, you're worthy of these things, but allow yourself to recognize and not take personal, sort of like, well, there are differences in sort of like, skill, match, aptitude, whatever. And with safety, one of the things I had to unpack over the years was everything's going to be okay. Well, no, sometimes it's not. I mean, okay by one vantage point. I had a very dear client I absolutely loved I still do. And the man died. We worked on his miracle, and his miracle was coming to really love and appreciate himself and his life exactly as he was. It didn't override, like we didn't get the happy ending. I had to come to terms with accepting that little adage, that little mantra of like, everything's happening, it's all going to work out. It's like, well, sometimes it doesn't work out in the way that you think it should. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work out, absolutely. The video I did on inner peace and breakthroughs the other day talks about how to kind of manage those ideas where it's like, everything's okay, everything's happening for you. And it's like on the ground though, it's like, well, this sucks or that didn't. Yeah, like, okay. I had hid I had hid pain in everything's happening for a reason, where it's like, oh, I lost this happened, well, this must be for a reason. I was using life and the pain to grow, but that was a choice that I was making. Life wasn't trying to hurt me, separation is also recognizing, or healing the misperception of separation is also recognizing most of your problems, honey, you cause yourself through your choices. Choices of thought, choices of focus, choices of speaking, choices of believing, and that's why my work is called Habit Book. Well, actually, it's called Habit Book because it was a habit book, actually, but I've taken that and run with it because it's these habits of thinking, habits of feeling, habits of interpreting that generate our life circumstances. There are these, these choices, these patterns of choices that we make that make things, that generate our life. And so I was saying, why hid and everything's going to be okay, or this is happening for a reason. Well, I find that life is self-writing, and that, it's going to grow towards an optimized sort of life. You can opt into that journey and go to that higher, better place. It's going to be different. It likely won't fit your expectation of what could have or should have been. But if you let yourself step past your personality, this idea of healing, where you sort of here's why, to me, again, mostly healing is being able to be with life without comparative ideas that take away from the joy that's already present. When you allow yourself that, where you are is cool. It could be pretty cool. So I think that, I grew up in the 90s. I think that a lot of us in that era saw on television these ideas of what things could be or should be, this very linear demonstration of life. This is what it's this, this steady upward climb. It's not, maybe for some people. And so any variations we have over that line create this disturbance in the personality. When I'm talking about the personality, I'm really talking about ideas that kind of reflect on or include this concept of Shaylee relative to other people, Shaylee relative, when Shaylee, I couldn't possibly see all of myself, and nor could you see all of me, and that you're always looking through yourself, you're always looking through your own ideas. And so it's just silly. So we've got these dots that we think we could or should be. And often when what I came to is suffering is allowing yourself, is holding your happiness, your joy, your power, your confidence, your okayness in contempt, along this path, rather than letting whatever it is be whatever it is. Wherever you are is where you are. I'm here, that's what it is. Does that mean, again, you don't pick up the markers, you don't take action toward improvement? Does it mean you don't improve the house? Does it mean you don't prepare the floor? No, it just means that you recognize while you're doing it, you might as well let yourself enjoy it, because this is it. This where it at. Going back to the idea of sort of is there what was the idea I wanted to go back to? Wholeness. I guess with wholeness, it does seem, at least for me, I had been waiting okay, well, when I get it all perfect, then. And there is wisdom to that. You probably don't want to bring new furniture into the room where the leak is. There is a reasonableness that says hey, there's not always going to be a leak here, but there's a leak here now, which means I could bring in new furniture. It's probably not great for it. What if I waited? There's this reasonableness, this practicalness to healing, where it doesn't have to be this mystical, bolt of lightning through all of time and space, where you're just I hope we make it, that's how I did it. And that had, it was fun. But it was also really painful, and I think it took a lot longer than it needed to be. All of this stuff can be on the ground. And another thing that we're healing, from my vantage point, anyhow, and this is part of the misperception of oneness, is that oneness basically implies we're all God. We're these divine expressions of what is. Healing the misperception of separation is also includes, like, to me, because life and God is all that is, it's being separate from God, being separate from that, essentially, like, that, I don't want to say set of skills, but let's say, like, that resource, you know, that, I guess, like, grandeur, where there's, like, why... there's so much information, so much love, so much stuff that's available. If you just stop thinking, how do I go get it? How am I, just let it fucking in. Just let it in. All right, let's wrap up. Oh, unconditional love to me is what I was talking about, as far as, like, you recognize that there is a state of wholeness that you'll approximate with your house. And yet, after that point, you still don't have shit to do. While you're doing this, you can still enjoy it. Be reasonable, be practical. Like I said, like, do you want to buy the new carpet till you have the floor fixed? Like, you can. Is that going to be the best use of your resources? Maybe, I don't know, but let yourself kind of see it objectively, recognizing that, like, there is a state that you're going to where it's different. Wholeness is different. You make choices different when you're not asking somebody to love you. You make choices different when you're not begging to be good enough. Like, interiorly, you might not be saying it, but, like, when you love yourself, when you're, able to have boundaries, when you're able to communicate your needs, when you're able, it's fucking different. It's different. And, like, it's easy. It's very easy. So unconditional love to me is letting whatever is be what is. It is a presence. It's being in the presence of God, where you can acknowledge the markers aren't in the right place. There's a hole in the roof, and yet it's not about that. Like, it's not about you. It's you do what's there, and, like, as best you can, allow joy to be present and with you. You can have a range of emotions. In fact, like, you likely will. Mad, sad, like, life includes loss. Life includes people sometimes crossing over your boundaries. Those are all emotions that are generated. Let them arise. Be with them. Then let those fuckers go. Like, you don't have to give them, like, a name tag, and a locker in your house. Like, just let it be. And choose as best you can to orient toward, like, well, what's to be done. Okay, so what was I offering? Unconditional love. Unconditional love? No. What was it? Yeah, it feels like it wants to come out of this hand, though. Be of them. We are the sum of all our parts. Yes, and I'd say, like, a little bit more, even a little bit more than that. So what I'm offering you right now is the potential, the possibility of awareness that it's all good, baby. It's all good. Remember, this does not mean you don't make new choices, you don't act, you don't effort. It only means that your relationship to those things makes a little bit more sense. It doesn't make sense to, and again, putting that on the table between us, you do your own research. It doesn't make sense to choose anything else. IMHO. For long, anyhow. Until, like, I didn't make those choices, and that ultimately made sense for me to be out here saying, like, don't make those choices. Which is to say, like, don't judge, just take the next step. Get out of your head. What's the next best step? Next best step. It's not about you. And yet you're very important, and yet you matter. Awareness and knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. I work with clients one-to-one, kind of applying these ideas, taking them to different areas of your life, helping clean up thinking, clean up seeing, pattern different skills. Like I said, we're looking at habits of thinking, feeling, speaking, interpreting, whatever, identifying, acting, like, all of those, like, you can train them. You can train them. I also sell art. I represent several incredible artists in New Orleans and beyond. And if you're interested in some work, some original work, I can get that for you. Some prints, some thank you, awareness, some murals, commissions, we can talk. And I have a lot of content on YouTube now. If you're watching on YouTube, I have a lot of content on Instagram. I've been out here since 2017, doing the thing, talking about it, riding the waves. And here's where we are now. I appreciate everybody coming out this morning. Have a beautiful day.